Trust-Based Relational Intervention, or TBRI, offers 3 research-based principles: connecting, empowering, and correcting, that guide building trust with children who have experienced relational trauma by addressing the needs of the whole child. Children from the hard place of relational trauma can experience healing, but they need something that they can't get on their own: a community that won't give up on them. A Toronto news outlet reported in May of 2023, Nick Walinda tightrope walked across Niagara Falls over a decade ago. Now, he wants to do it again. In the article, Nick is quoted as saying that he was walking the rope before he was born. Nick comes from a long line of tightrope walkers, including his mother, who walked the rope until she was 6 months pregnant with him. When he accomplished this amazing feat, Nick offered tribute to his past generations, and about the walk itself, a 25 minutes that, according to him, went rather quickly. He said that his nerves were less about fear and more about respect for the risk he took. He described the evening that he crossed the falls as heavy with mist, so thick that he couldn't see to the other side. But Nick had been balancing for most of his life. It's unimaginable to most of us, but isn't what he did also sort of simple? Tightrope walking is really about keeping your eyes up, your pole balanced, and putting one foot in front of the other. There's a parenting takeaway in Nick Walinda's amazing yet simple talent for walking the rope. In parenting, we too have a balancing act. It's between providing nurture and providing structure. Nurture and structure are a one foot after the other kind of walk. Miss a step, and our parenting gets out of balance. Steps of nurture look like connecting with a child and giving them voice. Steps of structure look like setting limits and disciplining. One way to look at the balance of the two is to refer to 4 caregiving styles. Keep in mind that just how Nick Walinda learned to walk the rope from his parents, where you fall in one of these styles was passed down to you from your caregivers. In the authoritative caregiver style, caregivers are respectful, nurturing, and interactive. They share power when appropriate, but also set clear limits. Their mantra is, "We're on this journey together." Children in these homes are more socially competent and have higher satisfaction with life. In the authoritarian caregiving style, caregivers are more like dictators who have a laundry list of non-negotiables. The caregiver holds all the power, likely uses punitive measures of discipline, and there is little respect for the experiences of the child. Their mantra is, "It's my way or the highway." Children in these homes experience more internal distress and report less self-esteem, not to mention tend to be more rebellious in the teen years. In the permissive caregiving style, caregivers are likely warm and supportive, but they set few limits or boundaries and offer little discipline. Here, children are the dictators, and the mantra is, "It's their way or no way." Children in these homes typically are unable to self-regulate, have high rates of substance abuse, and lack motivation. In the neglectful caregiving style, caregivers are either rejecting or uninvolved. The mantra is simple: "You're on your own." Children in these homes show the most extreme levels of lack of motivation, substance abuse, and delinquency. Without nurture, there is no trust. Without structure, there is no growth. All children need balanced parenting, but children from hard places have another top priority need that, if ignored, will cause extremely difficult conditions for your parenting walk. Children from hard places need the bar set for them to meet them where they are developmentally, and that could look drastically different from other children their age. When you set the bar for the nurture and structure that a child needs, you have to keep in mind where they're at developmentally. The complex developmental trauma experienced by a child who comes to you with a history of abuse, neglect, or abandonment, that trauma has interfered with their developmental trajectory. Not everything about the child is operating at their chronological age. Because of trauma, a child could be 10 years old, look 12 years old, and behave like a 5-year-old when interacting with you or with peers. If upset, that same child might exhibit behaviors of a 2-year-old when having a tantrum. That's all because developmental steps cannot be skipped, and complex trauma from abuse and neglect interferes with development. We crawl before we walk, before we run. We play alone before we play beside others, before we play with others. Someone meets all of our needs before they meet only some of our needs, before we meet our needs on our own. Steps cannot be skipped. Let's say that Max, a 10-year-old, who is tall and strong and is often mistaken for 12 or 13, is walking out to the car for school in the morning, but his shoes are untied. You remind him to tie his shoes so that he doesn't trip over them and so that they don't get stepped on and frayed. Max throws his book bag and lunchbox down, visibly frustrated. Pause. Where do you set the bar? Sure, Max has the gross motor skills and the size to play football with older kids, but gross motor skills are developed before the fine motor skills that are used to do things like tying your shoes. Also, it's possible that Max's capacity for frustrating tasks are more in line with a 5-year-old's than a 10-year-old's, so throwing down his stuff isn't surprising developmentally. Now, you decide which foot to lead with, nurture or structure. Since he is visibly frustrated, nurture would be the best first step. Nurturing includes connecting with him and giving him voice. That can look like simply going near to him, giving a gentle touch, and asking him what he needs. If he tells you how much he hates tying his shoes and that they never stay tied, you may decide to show a little empathy because that is frustrating. Then you follow with structure. Max still does need to have his shoes tied. But instead of expecting him to do it himself because he's 10, maybe you'll lower the bar by telling him you'll tie one and he'll tie one, or by asking him where maybe you could put a finger, so making the bunny ears to tie the shoes is easier. Mindful parenting looks like setting the bar where a child is at developmentally, or just above, and deciding in a moment to lead with nurture or structure to meet their needs. Nick Walenda has walked a lot of ropes, but you probably set the bar up to 100 times a day for your child. Starting with just one of those moments, stop and be mindful of the bar you've set and what balance you're bringing of nurture and structure.